quite a few people have joined so far. So can you confirm if you are able to hear me? I see Dave, you are here. Can you just send a message that you are able to hear us? Okay, perfect. All right, thank you. That's good. All right, so good morning, good afternoon, depending on wherever you are based. My name is Sanjjeev Singh, and thank you so much for joining our webinar on SAP Commerce Cloud Migration, why and how. So this is a 1-hour presentation. What we have done is we have structured this webinar in 3 sections. First section, we will talk about that why should you consider migrating to SAP Commerce Cloud. And then next section will be around how to migrate. What are some of the key considerations you need to keep in mind while you're planning for your cloud migration. And at the end, we'll open up for Q&A. So at that time, we'll open up the line and you can give us your questions through the chat, and then we'll try to take as many questions as we can, given our time. And if we are not able to answer all your questions, we will share our contact information, and then you can just get in touch with us and we can help you through this journey. So with that, let me just go through the agenda. So first we'll just do our welcome and introduction. I'll tell you about myself, and also then Zaid will give his introduction. And then we'll go through the next section, which will be like, why should we migrate to the public cloud? What are some of the business benefits and business values for doing this migration, and then how to migrate. And then that will be followed by a demo. So my colleague Zaid will show you some of the things what are unique to SAP Commerce Cloud, and then at the end we'll do a Q&A. So in terms of our introduction, as I said, my name is Sanjjeev Singh. I'm the managing partner here at ASAR America, and I'm also a SAP Press author for 3 books on SAP Press for SAP Hybris, SAP C/4HANA, and Sales Cloud. I have been in the SAP ecosystem for almost 20 years. I used to work for SAP America, and then for the last 10 years, I've been part of ASAR America. We are a SAP Gold partner, focusing purely on the customer experience suite of solutions. So we've been helping customers roadmap and implement SAP CX solutions based on the business value, what it makes more sense, whether that is a commerce, sales, service, marketing, customer data cloud. So that, Zaid, if you don't mind introducing yourself, and then we can go to the next section.
Sure, thank you, Sanjjeev. Hello, everyone. My name is Zaid bin Zubair. I am the SAP Commerce Practice Lead here at ASAR America. I recently joined ASAR America, but I've been working with SAP Commerce, previously known as Hybris, for about over 6 years. And looking forward to doing this webinar with you guys. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Zaid. Okay, so let's go through the why part of it. Why should you consider migrating to SAP Commerce in the cloud? A lot of customers, they have this question, especially from the business, that why should you consider migrating to the cloud? So what I have done in this presentation, basically at the high level, I'm going to share with you 4 key takeaways, what you should consider, that why this is the time when you need to start planning migrating to the commerce in the public cloud. Okay, so the first thing first is that you must future-proof your commerce platform. And what I mean by that is that if you see that the rate at which the e-commerce technology and e-commerce landscape is changing is really like mind-boggling. Like, I do not see any other technology changing as fast as we see the things changing in the e-commerce space. You are under constant pressure from Amazon of the world, to keep at par with commerce capabilities, available on the leading storefronts. Okay, so if you take example of like few years back, people you'll just go online and buy through the whatever shopping experience they have only through the browser. Then came the mobile app, and if you look at our key trends now in the commerce field, like you are looking at the voice search, multi and omni-channel retail, social commerce, subscription-based selling, So these are some of the key trends if you see, and the key here is that the new touch points or the new capabilities offered by these other e-commerce providers are like constantly getting added, constantly getting updated. Okay, so if your commerce architecture is not future-proof, that if you're not able to constantly add these capabilities to your website, what customers are expecting as a part of their experience with other leading commerce platform, then you get to lose on your market share with those customers. Okay, so the key here is that whatever commerce platform you're running, you just have to ask a question that, is our commerce platform capable of adding any of these new trends or any of these new capabilities which are being available, through the voice search, and as I said, the multi-channel common or the subscription model, all these kind of new functionality. Let's take an example of chatbots, that how quickly are you able to enable these functionalities, and that is what will be driven by what kind of commerce platform you're running your storefront on. So that's when I say that we need to future-proof your commerce. You have to see that what platform are you running? Are you running on the leading edge, which lets you be at the top of the curve in terms of your competitors, or are you more like a lagger and then letting your market share constantly shrink and you give away your market share to your competitors? So that is, in my opinion, the most compelling reason for you to look at your commerce platform, where you are, what you're using, and where you need to be if you're really serious about your commerce business. The second consideration I would say is that align with SAP Commerce Roadmap. So if you're already on SAP Commerce platform, or you're considering SAP Commerce, you have to start thinking that where exactly is SAP Commerce going? What is their roadmap looks like? Okay, so as you probably know, SAP Commerce Cloud Architecture is designed to give SAP Commerce software as a service, or SaaS. That's what SAP is moving towards. Okay, so SAP Commerce Platform in the new architecture is basically decoupled from the storefront and in purely headless commerce function. Okay, and what that means is that you have your commerce storefront and then you have your commerce platform, and they're both decoupled. And the way you integrate them together is through all these microservices, which SAP calls domain services. So as you see in this picture, the Spartacus, which is the SAP's recommended JavaScript-based, it's open source, so you can even go and download this storefront if you want to play around with this. It's available free. And then what you can do is that you can leverage all the domain services or microservices available in your commerce platform, commerce cloud platform, and then you can basically build the most engaging customer experience through this storefront. We'll be setting up another webinar to go over the details of Spartacus. How can you set up your own storefront using Spartacus in next month or 6 to 8 weeks, I believe. So stay tuned for that. But for now, I just want to tell you that the direction here is that Spartacus is a recommended JavaScript-based open source storefront that you can leverage to build all your B2C as well as B2B storefronts. If you desire to have your own JavaScript-based storefront, you can have that too. You don't need to really use Spartacus, and you can still leverage all these domain services available in Commerce Cloud Platform to build your storefront. So that is the second consideration I would advise you start thinking, that how do you align yourself with the SAP Commerce Roadmap? And the direction is clearly around the headless commerce using Spartacus as a storefront. Okay. Now, next thing is around the customer experience. So focus on the customer experience. And you see this word customer experience is like a widely used term. And a lot of times I see people just don't even completely understand that what exactly is a customer experience. Okay. So if I have to put my definition to the customer experience, I will tell you that it's basically the customer experience is how are you measuring, okay, or how your storefront is measuring against your customer experience. Now, keep in mind, whether it's a B2B or B2C, your customers are constantly shopping on other storefronts or other commerce platforms. And so when subconsciously what they're doing, they're building some kind of expectations in their mind that when I go, I should be able to easily navigate the product catalog. I should be able to see how can I buy, what I need to buy, what are the product details, is the pricing accurate, am I able to add the discounts, is it accurately reflecting in my shopping cart, am I able to, when I place the order, see when exactly am I getting the shipment. So all those details are more like, now it's more like a default expectations. And if your customer experience is lacking on any of those parameters, that's what I call that your customer experience is not at par with your customer's expectations. And that's where you will see that you have a churn out, like you have a like abandoned shopping cart, people come on your storefront and right away they leave. So you spend like hundreds and thousands of dollars, if not millions, in this whole SEOs, on-site, off-site marketing campaigns. And then what happens, you're getting the traffic to your storefront, but then they are not converting into the sales. And that is the main reason, that because your experience does not match your customers' expectations. So to remain viable in your commerce journey, you must include and start thinking that what exactly we need to do to make sure that we are not falling off the customer expectation. So if you look at the customer experience, basically there are just three key components of the customer experience. The first is the touch points, the customer touch points. Second one is interactions, like how you're interacting with the customer. And the next part is engaging, that how you are making customers do what you're expecting them to do. So in terms of customer touch points, okay, as I said earlier, that you had first just simple browser-based touch point, then came the mobile app, and now you have all the new touch points. So to my point earlier, that you need to make sure that whatever the new touch points are coming into the market space, like in the chatbot, or let's take an example of this voice-activated devices, you have to make sure that your storefront or your commerce platform is taking care of all those touch points so that you're not like giving up on those customers who might be coming through those touch points. Okay. The next is around the interactions. Okay, how are you interacting with the customer when they come to your storefront? Okay, and then are you giving them the engaging experience what they are expecting so that they stay on your storefront and do the complete checkout what you're looking for? Okay. So now, if you think about all these touch points, interactions, and engagements, in my opinion, these are not static events, or these are not static asks. These asks are constantly changing. Okay, so the bottom line is that when you are interacting with your customer, are you able to quickly change your storefront? Are you able to quickly change your touch points or interactions or the way you engage with the customer to make sure that you are at par with the industry, you are at par with your competitors? And that requires you to make a quick update to your storefront, quick update to the capabilities in the storefront, and make sure that you are taking care of whatever change you need to do to either add a new touch point, add a new way of interacting with the customer, or give it some engaging, like, sign up for this offer or something like that. And that's the whole part of the engagement on the storefront. And that is, if your commerce platform, any platform you're running, if it does not let you make those changes quickly, then basically what you're doing is you are not at the par with the customer experience, what your customers are seeking. Okay, so it's very important that you are focusing on the customer experience, your business is focused on the customer experience, and then your commerce platform is able to support that kind of change, to support that kind of agility, so that you're offering whatever is needed to your storefront, and at the same time, you're not being bottlenecked or limited by the rigidity of your commerce platform. So that is the third reason I would say that business should consider moving to the SAP Commerce Cloud. And third, last but not the least reason I would say is that moving to the Commerce Cloud definitely helps you simplify your DevOps operations. And there is a substantial cost in your overall commerce operations. Okay, and this I'm not talking of the cost in terms of like license cost or cost in terms of your like how long it takes to implement or migrate. Cost in terms of operational cost. and then what all the additional tools you might need, or you might be already using right now to run your commerce storefront, and then what exactly Commerce Cloud gives you to overcome those additional costs or expenses you might have in your current landscape. So let's take an example of now, SAP Commerce Cloud comes with a Dynatrace monitoring tool. Okay, it has inbuilt Kibana as a logging tool in that. It is based on the Kubernetes cluster to help you scale horizontally. Okay, I'll tell you some of the key features in SAP Commerce Cloud, which I'm sure my colleague Zaid will go through when he does the demo. But then you can understand that SAP Commerce Cloud has alerts for long-running database statements. You know, it has a hassle-free server restarts. There is inbuilt automatic disaster recovery. There is a server availability of 99.95%, just to name a few. So I mean, if you look at all the value propositions available in Commerce Cloud compared to what you would have to normally get to that level of functionalities using the different point solutions or different tools in your current landscape, like the value proposition and the cost justification easily outweigh or justifies the migration to the Commerce Cloud. So these are the 4 regions which I have shared with the customers in the past, and as customers see the value that they're putting together a business case for migration to Commerce Cloud. These 4 things can help you put together a business case for your either IT side or from the business side, that why should you consider migrating to SAP Commerce Cloud. With that, I would like to transition it to Zaid to go over the why part or the how part of Commerce Cloud migration, that what all the things you need to do, and then that will follow up with a demo in the Commerce Cloud. So Zaid, are you ready?
Yeah, thank you, Sanjeev.
Yeah, so I'll stop presenting, then you can just take over.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Sanjeev. So, hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I will be discussing the actual process of migrating your SAP Commerce environment to the SAP Commerce in the public cloud. Then we'll be talking about some special considerations when you're migrating and the challenges that you might face. And lastly, I'll take you through a small demo of what the Commerce Cloud portal looks like. Now, I like to divide a migration project into 2 different ways. The first way is to divide it into the different phases of migration. From a project timeline perspective, I see the migration effort divided into 4 phases. The first phase is the exploration phase. In this phase, we define the scope, licensing is purchased, and all preliminary work begins. This phase answers the question, what are we doing? Once the teams have been onboarded and the work has been scoped out, we enter the development phase. In this phase, the Commerce Suite is migrated, and we begin the effort to lift and shift the dev and staging environments. This phase answers the question, how are we doing it? Now, after deploying dev and staging, we get into the testing phase, where we conduct a comprehensive testing effort on the staging environment in hopes of flushing out any priority issues. This phase answers the question, did we do it right? Did we migrate everything properly? And then finally, when we have dotted our I's and crossed our T's, we are ready to deploy and go live. In conjunction with these phases, I also like to divide the migration efforts by identifying the responsible parties for each task in each phase. Since a migration is a large process, it requires the collective effort of the client, the partner, and SAP. You'll see all those in more details in the upcoming slides. Now let's take a deeper look at each of those phases and what tasks they contain. Phase 1, exploration. Starting with the exploration phase, I want to point out the obvious. The familiarity with the SAP Commerce Cloud varies from client to client. If you're a partner, you want to make sure that your client understands, first of all, what is the SAP Commerce Cloud and how it differs from their current infrastructure. Now, aside from the overview, there needs to be an end-to-end analysis of the current system. Oftentimes, a client might not have a partner or might not go ahead and use the current partner for a migration. So if a new partner comes in, they will need a little bit of that time to understand what that current system is. For the sake of this webinar, we will assume that the objective is solely to migrate the client onto the SAP Commerce in the public cloud. There will not be any additional feature development or addressing of technical debt. All of those increase scope, and which is beyond the point of this webinar, but I'm more than happy to talk to you about it later on. For the analysis to be successful, the client should provide a comprehensive techno-functional walkthrough of their environment and access to the code repository. This will give the partner a chance to analyze any customizations and configurations and see if anything stands out. For example, the SAP Commerce Cloud uses the Azure SQL database. Now, any instances of a project where you are writing direct SQL queries should be reviewed and tested to ensure that you are expecting consistent behavior with your current implementation, since that you'll be moving from a different database, albeit whether it's SAP HANA or Oracle, to the Azure SQL database. If there are any on-prem systems that your Commerce Suite depends on, a VPN tunnel will need to be established in order to allow these systems to communicate, and the network team from the client should work with the network team from SAP to set up that VPN tunnel. Also, as the client, you should have your licensing and service agreements with SAP and your partner signed off in this phase. Now, before we take a look at development, I want to mention that I have labeled the responsible parties normally in charge of completing each task. On the top right, you should see these three icons, and with each task, I have labeled the responsible parties for each phase. And although the work, well, this may show that a partner or a client or SAP is responsible, the work should never be siloed and communication should be open so that a successful migration can happen as quickly as possible. Now, before going on to development, I want to address one more point. So in regards to code changes and code freezes while a migration is taking place. Since a migration project for SAP Commerce Cloud would likely take up to several months, there often is an expectation that code can be deployed to the existing site in parallel to the migration activities. While this is true, at some point, no more changes will be allowed in order to align the code. This plan should be understood by all parties, including the business, since this will affect the functionalities they plan on releasing. Phase 2, development. In the development phase, we will be upgrading the Commerce Suite if it needs to be upgraded in order to be migratable. Generally, SAP Commerce Cloud is compatible with version 6.7 and over. However, certain patches are not compatible. SAP provides a table of versions that are not compatible with the SAP Commerce in the public cloud. If it's determined that an upgrade is needed, the upgrade will be applied locally, and we will lift and shift the dev environment. Once the dev environment is smoke tested, we will lift and shift the staging environment and smoke test it in the development phase. Now, for those of you that are not familiar with the terms lift and shift, it basically means it's basically an approach for migrating your apps to the cloud. It means moving an application and the data associated to the cloud platform without redesigning the application itself. As the partner works on migrating the code over to the SAP Commerce Cloud and testing the functionality, SAP will perform the database and media migration. You can see right here, point number 4. The reason why SAP performs this task is because access to the database and the media cloud storage is restricted for clients and partners. There have been cases of migrating the data via Impact's export-import process. However, those are usually limited in scope and data. As for the media files, with SAP Commerce Cloud, the provisioned application servers do not have persistent hard drives attached. Therefore, applications should not, applications should not rely on the files written to the disk in the long run. This storage will disappear when Kubernetes replaces the Commerce node. Cloud storage should be used for those files that are required to exist beyond the lifetime of a Commerce application instance. A third aspect in this lift and shift effort is making sure any dependent or third-party configuration is also migrated over. Most likely, those will be a part of the code migration. However, if any of those systems are on-premise, they will need to be configured to communicate through the VPN tunnel, as mentioned in phase 1. Yeah. I want to bring up, since we are on development, I want to bring up an interesting feature of the SAP Commerce Cloud, and that is the build manifest defined in the manifest.json file. A build manifest enables you to configure the Commerce Cloud to your exact specifications. You can specify extensions specific to your cloud platform that are not mentioned in your local extensions because they're not part of local development. You can define properties specific for each environment you have, which allows you to version your local.properties file and place all service-specific properties in the manifest.json, and so much more. It basically allows you to create different aspects for different environments that you have: staging, dev, staging, and production. This file is also new functionalities and extensions and properties are added for each environment without having to involve additional files and processes. For a full list of the build manifest capabilities, please see the SAP documentation. Aside from this, I also wanted to mention that out of the box, SAP Commerce Cloud comes with 3 environments: dev, staging, and production. Now, a lot of the implementations I have seen generally have at least 4, if not more than that, ranging up to several different environments. For those, I would say reach out to your SAP representative if that is a business need and you do need more. A standard commerce license comes with those 3 environments mentioned. Now, lastly, I want to talk about this cloud readiness check. So with the purchase of your SAP Commerce Cloud licenses, SAP does provide 2 free optional cloud readiness checks for the client. These checks are a nice way to get a report of how your migration process is progressing. SAP recommends that the first check be done during the development phase so that if any changes are needed, they can be corrected within dev and then deployed to staging. Phase 3 testing. Now that the code has been deployed, the data has been migrated, the data and media, has been migrated, and the dependent systems have been configured to the SAP Commerce Cloud, it is time to begin our user acceptance testing. In this phase, the client will be running either their automated test scripts or manually going into staging and testing. Any issues that arise from this testing effort are prioritized, fixed, and then redeployed. And aside from this UAT phase, any sort of performance testing or system integration testing will also be a part of this phase. And then SAP will also perform their second cloud readiness check before we go into the 4th and final phase. With all of this development and testing, I want to quickly mention the processes that exist for any CI/CD related task. The SAP Commerce Cloud does come with basic build and deploy options. At a click of a button, you can launch a build and configure a deployment. Before deploying, you will have the option to choose basic HAC update commands such as updating the running system or initialization, or not doing either one of those. You will also have the option of performing a full server restore or doing a rolling restart for once production is live. Each of those has their pros and cons in terms of the speed they are performed at and the availability of your servers. Now, with all of these, although all of these options certainly sound user-friendly in some respect, they do come with their own challenges too. As of today, There isn't a built-in continuous integration, continuous delivery option. When a build or deployment is required, you will have to manually trigger it through a button click on the Commerce Cloud portal. SAP does provide some APIs to connect with your existing CI/CD setup, but I have not personally used that feature yet. I would say please check the SAP roadmap for details on the built-in CI/CD experience. Phase 4, development. Once the testing is complete, the cloud readiness check is passed, it is now time to lift and shift your production environment. Make sure you have the correct build deployed to your production and all your dependent systems are integrated. SAP will migrate the database and medias to your production environment. Once the smoke tests have passed, it is time to make the switch to going live on the SAP Commerce Cloud. The client should also have a list of any cutover tasks required. Some important things to consider is deactivating your previous production environment, whether that comes to just deactivating it or working out specifics with the licensing, configuring your endpoints, any SSL certificates, any IP filtering, maintenance pages, security files, and any other specific tasks particular to your implementation before and after go live. And that basically marks the end of our journey for a transition and a migration onto the SAP Commerce in the public cloud. Now, before we get into the demo, there are a few points that I want to mention, the special considerations that are, in my opinion, new enough and should just be brought up when talking migration. So starting with the first point, the new cloud hot folders is a different setup from the SAP Commerce on the SAP infrastructure on the on-prem hot folders. For starters, to push or to read data from the on-prem hot folders, the classic options were to use FTP to transfer the files or to have an NFS driver, but those are no longer available with the new cloud hot folders, which uses the Azure Blob Storage. So now the strategy moving forward, and there's actually a few different options, and I'll just briefly go over those. So in order to migrate the connectivity from an on-prem to your Azure Blob Storage, the new options are as follows. So number one, you can use the Blob Service REST API. Number two, you can use the Blob Storage SDK. 3, the Blob Fuse Virtual System Driver. 4, the Azure CLI command line interface. Number 5, the AZ copy command line tool. And number 6, which is the option that I have personally used, is the Explorers for Blob Storage, which is basically a GUI and the GUI that I've used is Microsoft Azure Storage Explorer, where you can drop the files and they will be processed by your hot folders on your on the Commerce Cloud. How that works and the specifics are provided in, I believe, in a tutorial on SAP, but basically there will be a key that you will have to configure as well as some settings within the Azure Storage Explorer, and that should allow you to connect to your cloud hot folders. It is also possible to create a bridge system that can receive the files through the SFTP and transfer them to the Azure Blob Storage. If this is a critical ask, there are third-party systems that provide a paid service to do this feature. Now, as previously mentioned in phase 2, if you have any on-prem servers or for your dependent systems, they will need to use a VPN tunnel to communicate with the Commerce Cloud. If you are hosting any softwares, libraries, or anything else that exists outside of your Commerce Suite, but all in the same infrastructure as your Commerce application, then you will have to include those as regular integrations. The reason for that is SAP Commerce Cloud is running a containerized predefined setup. So any third-party software that requires infrastructure cannot be deployed on the public cloud infrastructure. This additional integration will also require testing, just to put it out there. As far as your code repository is concerned, SAP Commerce Cloud will will pull your source code from your Git-based source repository that should be available on the public internet. The repository will still be secure because it follows the same SSH or HTTP protocol by only allowing login to authorized and authenticated sources. The process to that is basically you will be adding a SAP Commerce Cloud generated SSH key to your cloud repo to allow the SAP Commerce Cloud environment to perform builds based on the branches you specify. We won't be using the same end production build task to package up the code upfront anymore. That will be all handled by the on the Commerce Cloud portal through just a handful of button clicks. And we will go over that, and I'll show you a little bit of that in the demo. Now, SAP also discourages customizing the Solar schema. However, if you do have customizations, you can put those in, such as customizing the schema XML or the Solar config XML for any changes in the behavior of how Solar works, or any configuring languages or spell checks, etc. SAP recommends they use this migration to see if you can perhaps streamline your specific implementation so that it doesn't require those customizations, but it's still possible to deploy those. Also, SAP also discourages using the custom and targets, since the Commerce Cloud only has one standard build options. If you are using the and customize, it might be a better option just to override the functionality using Spring aliases if possible. You can also try using the build manifest to your advantage when configuring custom and builds. The SAP Commerce Cloud does not come with an SMTP option out of the box. I know the implementations that I've seen previously for the for when SAP hosted the infrastructure, they did provide SMTP servers. Currently, it is not an option out of the box. One option that I've seen is to provide your own SMTP servers. And if those servers are on-premise, then they should be configured with the VPN tunnel. If you want to know if they will have that functionality, I would just say, just address the SAP roadmap on when and if they will have the SMTP functionality. Next, and Sanjjeev was actually mentioning this earlier, and we've spoken about this CI/CD earlier, so let me skip ahead to the Kibana. So SAP Commerce Cloud uses Kibana as opposed to Splunk. In the previous version of SAP, you can use Kibana to analyze all your applications console and request logs. You can also configure your own dashboards and use and visualizations. The experience, to my knowledge, should be similar to Splunk. However, the difference is that you are using a different set of technologies, and it will have difference in syntax changes and all of that. The Kibana documentation is pretty well maintained and supported, so I would say refer to that for learning Kibana. If there are requests for further deep dives into those, we can see if we can schedule more webinars just to deep dive on all that you can do with Kibana and the Commerce public cloud. SAP Commerce does come with Dynatrace for all your performance management free of cost. This is usually, this can be used to understand how your site is performing, be alerted when any issues arise, and be able to troubleshoot when your application, when issues are happening with your application. Previously, I believe SAP had access, at least from what I've seen, SAP was the only one who had access, and you could request them to provide some information using Dynatrace. But now with this, now with SAP Commerce on the public cloud, they have given access to clients and partners for Dynatrace. Now, and then I want to mention the last point that I thought of was talking about the data center. So If you have a specific data protection laws and regulations that affect the physical position of any data centers, you need to make sure that the SAP Commerce Cloud offers a data center in your required region. And if you're handling any credit card information and you require your data center to be compliant for PCI DSS 3.2, SAP Commerce Cloud, it's not certified for PCI DSS 3.2. And for those of you that are not familiar with that, PCI DSS stands for the Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard. And it is an information security standard for organizations that handle branded credit cards from major credit card schemes. If not being certified is blocking your project, then I would say please consult with your SAP representatives on what you can do. Now with this, let me quickly switch over to the demo and then we can have our Q&A. So let me maximize this. Okay. So this is what the Commerce Cloud portal looks like. This is our ASAR demo environment. Currently, we have one dev environment. Normally, a standard implementation will have a dev, a staging, and a production. On the left side, you will see the basic subscription resources and deployment options. Let's go through some of them and see what they offer. So right now I'm in the environment option. If you click on your D1 dev, you will be taken into kind of its build. So here are all the public endpoints. You have your storefront, you have your solar, and your background processing and all of that. A deep dive on the Commerce Cloud Portal is a session in itself, but I want to take a little bit of time just to show everybody, since we've talked about all this migration, I want everybody to see what the end result is and where you're heading. This is this JavaScript storefront that Sanjjeev was talking about. Very powerful. It's separate from the actual storefront, so you potentially have your two storefronts running at the same time based on your business needs. You have your hot folders and your Kibana logging available here for that particular environment. Each environment will have its own, as well as any services. You have your snapshots and your monitoring for your Dynatrace. Because as a partner, we have the partner version of this. Dynatrace is not available since we aren't placing orders. And there is a restriction on the amount that were provided, but majority of everything that we have is what you will see, except you will see more with your particular purchase. Now, if you go into your editing the environment, okay, sorry about that. So now we're in the editing the environment. You can see that you have your environment name, your locale, and some basic time zone information. Let me come back. So let's talk about what type of build options you have. So here is where we can go to create a build. Once you click create build, you will be able to specify the name of the build based on your unique specifications and which branch or tag it pulls from. Once you save the build, it will create that build. So rather than creating a build right now, which will take a little bit of time, let's explore one of the builds. So this is us building our standard B2B out of the box build. So once it's finished, this is what you should see. Looks like it is thinking a little bit. Let me refresh. Okay, all right. Sorry about that. So then now you see your basic build information. You can see when it started and it finished, and how long it took, what code it deployed. You can download the log. Now, if you want to take this build and you want to deploy it to a specific environment, you click the deploy environment. You have your target environment. So far, we only have dev, so we can deploy the dev. These are the HAC options. So you can initialize your database, you can migrate your data. No migration required, you can specify that. As far as the deployment modes, you can do a rolling update, which is, like it says, slowest, but there's no downtime, or recreate, which is fastest, but with downtime. So moving on, I want to show the repository. So this will point to your repository on your Git repo, and you can take your SSH key and configure it to the your code repository so that Commerce Cloud can pull and create builds. The security tab will contain, you can specify all your IP filters and SSL certificates and so on and so forth over here. Currently, we don't have anything because we're just handling out-of-the-box dev environments, but for production, you will need your own SSL certificates. You can specify static files and see site availability. You can also manage your users, so adding users into your that can access the cloud portal and the only thing they need to have is an email and a suser ID linked to that email. They can be given the sysadmin rights, the the developer rights, and the log viewer rights. And the last part is the extension factory, which is another feature of Commerce Cloud. And you have all of these links to get started on developing that functionality. So with this, I would like to open up the floor for Q&A.
Yeah, so if you don't mind typing your question in the chat, and then we can see how many questions we can take.
Sanjjeev, do you want to talk about Falcon?
Yes, so just a minute, please. So while we are waiting for the questions, just want to outline here, these are mine and Zaid's email addresses. So if you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to contact us. And then one thing we would like to share with you that ASAR America, we have launched this service called Falcon. This is a packaged services to help customers with the Commerce Cloud migration. So basically, what this gives you is whatever we have reviewed, the steps needed. The very first step of the exploration, what we do, we work with our customers to understand, evaluate their current landscape, and then review their codes, integration points and everything, and then come back with our recommended approach for the migration. So basically at the end of this exercise, the assessment exercise, and importantly enough, this is like free exercise, so you are not paying anything for that service. ASAR America will do that service free of cost for you. So basically we'll just do this assessment and then give you exactly the budgetary quote that what would it take for you to migrate to the Commerce Cloud, including the timeline, budget, consulting resources, expectations from your end and from our end. So if you are interested in engaging us for this Falcon, please let us know, and then we'll have one of our partners reach out to you. Do we have any questions? So let's see here. I see. Okay. So the question here Zaid, is, can you see this in our chat? I have a couple of questions here. I haven't seen anything referenced about the back office in the presentation. How is the data being managed? So do you want to show the back office in the demo? Is it something you're able to show?
Yes. So the data in back office is still managed the same way. I can pull up back office, but back office hasn't changed in any way. Let me see if I can pull up back office. Data in itself will remain exactly the same, and your back office experience won't change from your business standpoint. If there's any concern with how this database and media cloud storage will interact, that is taken care of seamlessly in behind the scenes by the cloud platform and by SAP. I let me see. I know we changed the back office password. Let me see if I can find where it's written. So unfortunately, I'm
Okay,
kind of
no worries.
But
I
back
think,
office, I just want to make it 100% clear. Back office will not change in any way. You should still see the same back office you would in your as in the previous infrastructure.
okay, perfect. Next question is, what are the basic timeline it will take for migration from 6.7? So what we have seen with the customers, the timeline is anywhere from 12 to 15 weeks in ideal scenarios. Some customers have taken a little longer, but for all your practical purpose, you can think like 12 to 15 weeks. That's the right timeline for migration from 6.7.
Right.
Nick, sorry, go ahead.
Sanjay, I just wanted to add one more thing. So the more environments you have, if your implementation is very extensive and it's a bigger implementation and you require perhaps a second a QA environment or multiple dev environments, those will each take longer just because of the setup and testing, not twice as long, but just a little longer, just to make sure that each environment is set up and the data is replicated across all the environments.
So next question is, say, which cloud provider are currently available for deployment? So the answer is right now is SAP Commerce Cloud is available, public cloud is available in Microsoft Azure, but SAP has a plan for AWS and Google Cloud Platform. Those timelines should be available in the Commerce Roadmap from SAP. So definitely that's what the answer for that question. Next question we have is, can we add a quality check in the steps of the build? How do we configure the storefront in the manifest? Zaid?
Yeah, the quality check. So like I said, I haven't used the APIs that have been provided by SAP, but if you have existing quality checks, such as, let's say you're doing some kind of, you're running your JUnits and things like that, those I believe you can configure them in your manifest. I've seen the documentation on the SAP help site. But if you are talking about something where your Jenkins environment or wherever your whatever your build environment is calling other third-party systems to run some automated testing, that I am not sure of. Maybe the APIs can do it, but honestly speaking, I haven't gone through an implementation that has requested that those APIs be used yet.
Another question there is saying that actually we have a cron job that writes some CSV files on specific directory for third party, and those CSV files will still work, or will need to change something regarding the blob format?
Yeah, so it sounds, so if I understood correctly, the CSV files write a report on a third-party integration, right? So as long as you're not storing the files, as long as you're not storing the files on the cloud storage, as long as you're not storing them, within your own application servers, then it should still be okay. In terms of where that third-party system lies, you might have that VPN tunnel issues if it's not on-prem. But if this is a question that you want to talk further, I would definitely reach out to me and we can talk more specifics about it. I wouldn't feel comfortable generalizing a statement like that for all third-party integrations without a little more background.
Okay, perfect. And next question is, hope we still have a couple of more minutes. So how do you see the technical logs, since it is difficult to see it in Kibana?
Yeah, so you can actually download the logs here as well. So there are a few options. You still have access to your HAC, so you can still get your console logs from there, number one. Number two, Kibana will be the source for tailing a log. However, if you do want to download, there are options there to download the logs. I believe you saw the for the build, you can download the build log. And as far as the actual logging goes, in terms of just before we used to SSH and just tail the console log. Now I believe either Kibana would be the source, and even with the previous Commerce Cloud version 1, we were still using Splunk to do the same for the higher environments that were managed by the SAP infrastructure. So you do have certain options. However, and the option that I also like, but I need to get over to, is the SSHing and just tailing the console. I don't believe we have the ability to do that anymore since the infrastructure is out of our hands now.
Okay, so that puts us at the top of the hour. So thank you, Zaid. And thank you everyone for joining this webinar. We will be uploading this recording on the YouTube and share it on the social media. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care.